Yeah.
Are you just going to hold the POW? You can have a POW shirt if you want.
Yeah, hey? He's got the tattoo.
He was busy.
Right here.
Does he actually?
Yeah, he's got one tattoo here and another we can't. I'm just making this shit up.
Yeah, where would you get your POW tattoo?
Yeah. Well.
I'm Steph Korolyk. I'm the Community Advocacy Manager at POW Canada, and I'm here today with two POW ambassadors, two athletes, Gadd and Alannah Yip.
That was good.
So, to hear from both of you, what motivated you to be part of POW Canada and lend your voice as an ambassador for POW?
I don't know, I'm really nervous all of a sudden. I think spending a lot of time outside and seeing climate change happen even within my lifespan, like even just from my childhood to my early 20s, was pretty striking and made me want to get involved in some way. And kind of becoming a professional athlete and realizing I did have a bit of a platform, I guess, it made me want to do a little bit more. And then chatting with some of the other Arc'teryx athletes was really how I got involved in POW.
What she said pretty much covers it. But I mean, I'm out in the mountains a lot. So I'm out there climbing and skiing and doing everything. And I have been since I was a kid. And the mountains have changed radically over the years that I've been going there. When I was a kid, you got out of your car at the Athabasca Glacier and you walked like 2 minutes and you were there. And within my lifetime, that's changed radically. So watching the mountains change really quickly, and not in positive ways. You get 5 guides together, all they talk about is how they almost got killed by rockfall from melting permafrost. So it is very personal. And so about 10 years ago, I decided that I had to at least make a difference so that when my kids asked me, Dad, what'd you do about climate change? I couldn't just say, well, I flew on a lot of jets to cool places and it was rad. I mean, because that's the hypocrisy of what I do. I'm employed to go places. So how do I balance that? And is such a thing possible? And I decided that I had to at least try something. And so, yeah, this is part of that.
And I guess that leads into, I'm skipping ahead, but it leads to a question of, and Will, you've already answered it a little bit, of just in all your time sort of, no, it's okay, training and exploring or climbing across the world, like, have you seen those changes just in your career so far?
Most radical change that I have seen within my lifetime, so I grew up on the North Shore and grew up learning to ski and skiing on the North Shore mountains. It's really on those mountains. When I was a kid, there was no question about like how much snow or if we could ski there every year. And now it's really not reliable at all if you can even ski on Grouse, Seymour, Cypress. The snow is pretty bad, but I remember it being like quite good every year. And then in climbing wise, I think it's of rockfall that we see now from the extreme heat and the extreme cold cycles year after year.
Yeah, I mean, my world is changing very quickly, and I often talk to corporate groups, and somebody in the back is always like, climate change is bullshit. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about that. But if you live and work in an office, climate change is very hard to see. It's like the office is the same temperature. Maybe it's a bit warmer on the way to work. You don't really see dramatic changes. But my office is changing really quickly. Whether I'm out there climbing on my own in the mountains and I have to go up 100 meters of rubble to get out of the glacier where I used to just walk off, like my world is changing very, very quickly. So it's just super obvious. And I want to take people with me. And that's some of the film projects I do and stuff. I try to show these changes in a way that is more positive than just yelling at people. I tried yelling at people for a while. That didn't work very well. That just they didn't listen. So I try to show people rather than yell at people.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Oh, it's totally changed my objectives. Like there is so much permafrost in both the European Alps and the Canadian Rockies, and it is melting. It's quite different. In Chamonix, I was working there this summer, and they built a cable car down to the glacier 25 years ago, and that was the final solution. We're good here. And then the cable car is like 100 meters above the glacier. And that's just in the time I've been going there for work. And now there's a better cable car that's supposedly going to be the final solution, And yeah, I mean, it's just dramatic changes. Some peaks that I don't want to climb or guide. I climbed Athabasca when I was 8 years old, and the route we climbed was like really good. It was called the ramp route, and it was a ramp. There's no way I'm taking my kids up that today. No way. I mean, totally sketchy.
I mean, one of the questions is about climbing conditions and how you kind of prepare and assess and explore differently with unpredictable conditions and climate change affecting seasons and conditions overall. You've both talked about rockfall. I mean, it changes competitions, I imagine, too, just in terms of how those might even occur and how you can prepare for them.
I mean, much less interesting topic to talk about, but the way it's changed, say like the way we look at World Cups now, there's a lot of discussion over whether we can hold outdoor World Cups anymore. Because if you've been following the climbing World Cup circuit in the last couple of years, so the summer World Cups are generally extremely hot these days, like the high 30s to low 40s in the south of France, or like in France, in Spain. And a number of them this year, it's a really good example, actually had rounds that were canceled because of rain and storms. There's a lot of discussion over that, like with climate change. Is the weather reliable enough to hold outdoor World Cups anymore? Yeah, and if they want to kind of grow the competitive side of the sport, how are they going to get thousands of people into, like, we need really big arenas then, which then come with their own enormous climate footprint.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting topic, and I could give example after example about how my world is changing. But I just give one that's kind of interesting. In the Canadian Rockies, the ice climbing is actually getting a lot better because we have greater freeze thaw cycles during the winter. So from a strictly like a home range perspective, never mind the rest of the planet, it's actually getting better there just because it is so much warmer. And if you're a skier, you're stoked because the snowpack is a lot more stable on average. 1 year ago and 3 years ago accepted. In general, it's been a lot more stable, and which I like skiing. So in a way, it's been good. It's not like everything's negative everywhere. It's just things are different. For me, I'm kind of past the like, I'm way past the like, is this real? What do we do? And I'm in very much in the like, how do we adapt as best we can? And this is a really big, that's where my brain is now, is the adaptation part of this, because we're in it, like we're going. So how do we deal?
I think we're just all having these conversations and thinking about these things, so it's the natural progression of how we talk about them. One question is about how the climbing community could change things or do anything differently in the way we approach climbing, and to have an impact on the climate crisis, which is a big question. As a community, what do you see, or do you see changes that could happen? You've got the answer?
I don't have the answers. Nobody has the answers. Yeah. That's like two big questions, is how do we approach climbing differently in the future, and then what can we do to make an impact? And yes, like everyone can make their own small individual impact, but really like the biggest impacts that we could see are affecting like large industry, and that comes at a governmental level, and that's really hard to impact individually. Write your MPs, continue to write your MPs, continue to call and try to make an impact that way, but that's difficult to do on an individual level. It needs to be on more of an organizational level, and that's, I know, like part of the reason that POW exists. As for how do we approach climbing differently in the future, I think everyone is going to have to be more and more aware of like how these climbing areas are changing. You can't just go out kind of blindly thinking that they're the same as when you climbed in them 10 years ago, or that not be worried at all about rockfall in Squamish, for example. We were in the boulders yesterday and we heard a tree fall down. We heard a little bit of rockfall as well. That's not something that I used to worry at all about in the boulders until a few years ago, really. And like, it's not only in the big mountains that you're gonna have to start thinking about the impacts of climate change.
We need global solutions, and climbers are global. Like, we're all over the world. That's one of the things I love about climbing. I show up anywhere in the world and there's a crew to climb with. And they are often more switched on environmentally. And so I think we can use that, and it has to be a global solution. So using global groups of people that are outside of just one country or one way of thinking about things is really important. And so I'm hopeful that more climbers will get involved and push for more. It's got to happen. The personal side of it is I don't have great solutions to that yet. I just don't. But I'm wrestling with it, and I'm trying. I will. That's probably your next question, so I will be quiet now on that.
I want to pull it back because I skipped one earlier about just talk about a sort of a climb or a competition that shaped your perspective, or because we've been talking a lot about just climate change and the things you've noticed over your careers. Do you have a sort of something that you look back on that shifted that perspective or that brought it into focus?
I don't think there's one specific thing for me. It was an accumulation of small things that I noticed, or like hearing people speak about it, like reading about it, documentaries, whatever. It's just an accumulation of everything.
I'd give two moments. About 15 years ago, I was in Sweden to go ice climbing, and the ice climbing in Sweden is not very good. You don't want to go there. But there was ice climbing, and I was supposed to do this thing, and there was no ice. And for the first time in 120 years, they'd canceled their motorcycle race on the frozen lake, which was near where we were supposed to climb. First time in 120 years. And they're like, yeah, we're out. We can't do this anymore. And then that kind of gave me a clue. And then I've been helping research projects in the mountains globally. So on Mount Kilimanjaro, the glaciers there, watching them just change radically, really. And then working with the scientists. You know, these scientists are really boring. They're like 0.018 degrees per blah, blah, and you like fall asleep. But you've put a few beverages in them, and they're like, we're all doomed. You know, it's just, and it gets way more interesting. So listening to them in an unfiltered way where they weren't trying to be like perfect scientists. A couple of them in particular, I was like, these are really smart people and I need to listen to this and think about it more because they're not part of like big climate or some bullshit. These are really smart people thinking about this. Anyhow, no, even in that environment, most of the people who are thinking about it are very aware of what's happening. And at the same time, I drove my truck to get to that conference. So I really don't feel like I have a platform to tell them, hey, don't do what you're doing and don't give me the check. Mm-hmm. There's often, it's usually one or two fairly vocal people. Most people get it in that environment. They get it. Yeah. They're not evil people, and the more we try to treat them as evil people, the less real change we're going to get. Yeah. They're people doing a job and working for their families and stuff. So, definitely. But there are people that I do get some pretty extreme pushback on. And I bring this stuff up in the room. I guarantee you that nobody else is walking in there is. And that's my job, is to go into places where maybe other people can't. And, you know, I get them fired up and then hit them in the head with climate change. Yeah. But not really. I mean, I just show people. I don't tell them, I show people.
Yeah. And that's the hope of POW as well, is to open the door to say, if you recreate outside, if you spend time outside, then maybe you notice changes, and we can talk about what those are and what's happening, and that's the start of the conversation.
And even if somebody's yelling at me, then we can have a conversation and we can talk about it. Yeah. That's a start. Exactly. Those are the people I need to talk with. You're good. Yeah. Get on here. But the people that are working in that environment and don't see that's what I need to connect with.
Yeah. And we don't want people to be perfect, or you don't have to live a perfect life.
I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. None of us are perfect. Yeah. We all have dirty hands to some degree. We kind of touched on about what climbing could look like in decades to come. I mean, anything else to add to that before our final question?
I think we have to realize we have an insane, like, really impressive amount of freedom right now to like live our lives. It's like we're living in quite possibly the very best time ever to be a human. And I don't want to urge anyone to like do anything irresponsible, but quitting your job and going climbing would be excellent, because I don't think we're going to have the same degree of mobility and economic freedom in the future. And we're in this adaptation phase. So I don't think you should quit your job and go climbing, but it's not a bad idea. and do a little bit of activism. It's like we are in a very, very rich and lucrative time to be alive right now. And I think I've been a bit of a climate tourist in the last 10 years, because I'm like, I want to see some things that will be gone. So I think that's probably, I don't know if that's a healthy thing to do, but I think it's important to live your life now and also try to prepare for the future in a positive way. Go climbing. It's good.
That's a good takeaway. If each person listening could take action to protect the places they climb, what would that look like?
The most important changes that we can make are at a governmental policy level. So continue to call your MPs, write your MPs, look up something I learned the hard way. Look up what your MP actually voted for first before you tell them. Definitely you should absolutely vote for this thing. They're like, yeah, I actually brought that bill to the House of Commons. Yeah. But you sometimes will, if you writing them personalized emails, you will oftentimes get a personalized response back, and you can actually have a conversation. Probably not with them, but one of their staff members. But I think that is important to actually do that, and not personally, I think, then more than just putting your name on the online signature thing, which can be great for getting numbers, but I think making it more personalized can be great as well.
No, I think that's a really good answer. So changing things at the government level through writing MPs and so on, but also even in your, it sounds kind of stupid, but I try to respond to one really stupid thing on the internet a week, as dumb as that sounds. I try to actually engage with some kind of nutball thing that comes across especially if it's one of my friends. I'll be like,
space lasers starting wildfires.
Whatever it is, it's just, I think the more we and not in a negative, you're an idiot, although some may be an idiot, but they're just, I think we have to, if our voices are silent, then all we hear, it seems like the people who will post this stuff, maybe they're just bots, but they have unlimited time. And so I make it consider an effort just to engage publicly a little bit, and if not just let it slide. It's like any kind of super negative thing in the world. If it does just slide and becomes normalized, then it's a problem. So there's the high level stuff and then the low level stuff, and then I do try to support companies that make an effort to do better. People love to trash virtue signaling, but if a company's making an effort, I will make an effort too, to do that and especially to change the companies that aren't making an effort. Yeah, and I can think of several that I work with, but I'm still in there. Yeah. I'm showing up.
And that's, that speaks to some of what POW tries to do is strengthen numbers and having our members, tens of thousands of members that we can represent and say we're asking for change, and we represent all of these people who care about the outdoors, but we're also, we work with athletes to try to get that message even further abroad. But we have, events like this, postcards you can write to your MP, whoever your MP or MLA is, they're your representative. So they have to answer to what you ask of them, and how they answer it is up to them. But if you don't say anything like you're saying, sometimes it just goes silent. And I've read that people don't talk about climate change enough because they don't think that other people are kind of thinking about it or caring about it. But the majority of people do care, and if you start talking about it, that can be a ripple effect to more conversations happening and minds being changed, and these conversations and building relationships is how minds do get changed over time. So whether you're fighting in the comments or writing your MP once a week. But we're super lucky to have athletes like Alannah and Will on board with us.
Anybody have any questions? We've been answering. Do you have questions or thoughts or?
Yeah, it's very chill.
Yeah, please,
you reduced your actual triathlon last decade or so?
You can just have it like that.
So since I stopped competing, absolutely, and I'm making a concerted effort. I mean, not to travel as much, but also that is a little bit I just traveled to South Africa. So I am absolutely I'm trying, but I'm also not perfect. I don't know what to,
By the mayor of Whistler, Jack Crumpton, that said it's titled "We Must Act Even with Dirty Hands," and it's all about just not becoming stuck or apathetic because based on all the different ways that you are beating yourself
what
up
was
about
it?
not being
What was it
perfect.
called?
We must act even with dirty hands.
Okay. Just so we got the.
Oh yeah. I've been thinking about that a lot. And just and there's so much. I don't know that if we get too stuck, then we've lost regardless.
I would say I struggle with that quite a lot, as feeling I have dirty hands, and it's difficult to act then. I don't have a solution.
And people are quick to point it out if you're in the public eye, I assume more so than, someone.
They should.
Yeah.
I have reduced it a fair amount for sure, but what I've also done is I think about it before I do it. I say no a lot more. And I am like the poster child for a carbon criminal. They could just put me up there and be like, him, that guy. So how do I reduce that and then also make it a decision that I don't take lightly? And I think one of the things I'm looking at some point, this career is going to be done, and I'm going to be a lot happier about not having to fly as much. Flying is the one that kills me. So I calculate my carbon footprint every year, and then I do some things that I hope mitigate it. So every flight I take, I've done carbon offsets are not a solution, but they are at least putting a price on what I'm doing. So every flight I take, when I send it in to the sponsor or whatever for that flight, there's a line on there for an offset that I've researched personally and I think is pretty good. It's not great, but at least it shows them and me the cost of that flight in carbon. And then when I calculate my carbon footprint, I can look at it and go, okay, I actually tried to do something about this and just bring it into the discussion. On the other hand, that my carbon footprint as a percentage of the problem is far less than a lot of the other things that I'm probably involved with. Like, what do my investments do? How do these are things that I can also have an impact on. So I just try to be conscious of it and lower it. And at the same time, I'm a pro athlete. I get on jets. I don't buy business class anymore. I get upgraded, I'll take it. Because sorry about that, buddy, but if that's 3 times the carbon impact of economy. So I'll buy economy, and if I get upgraded, great. If not, I sit there and I suffer for that 12 hours because I should. Because I'm in a carbon disaster. And I sit there with my knees and I'm like, I suck. And I try to just take it as my penance.
You don't watch any movies? You just
No, I just sit there and stab myself with a pen the entire flight.
Raw dog the flight.
Yeah, just I suck. I suck. No, I'm really stoked when I get a pod, but I'm not going to buy the pod anymore. So, and that seems like such a ludicrous thing to say, but it is. Yeah, I think we're all wrestling with this. And
I think, and maybe one other thing that I try to do, so I started working on the Arc'teryx Advanced Concepts team. It's bring it up all the time about how much waste we're generating, even with certain in-house prototyping, or do we need to throw that prototype away? Could we rebuild it and reuse it into something else? Is that fabric really so dead that we need to chuck it? Could we save it and repurpose it into something else? So.
But it has to be changed at a global level. I just did a really interesting TV program with this guy, and what do you guys think of this? This nut bar wants to spray a form of titanium oxide in the atmosphere to reduce the sunlight and reduce the cooling. What do you guys think?
Thoughts from the audience?
Not the plants need sunlight.
What's that? Yeah, well, they need sunlight for sure, but his idea is to basically reduce, and he's actually been working on this. And so I did this program with this guy, and I'm like, you're a nut bar and a mad scientist that is going to cause problems. And after working with him for a while, I realized that he was actually on the other end of the spectrum. He was like, if we continue on our current path, we're going to dislocate about 1.5 billion people in the next 30 years. Are you okay with that? And I was like, no fair, man. How can you turn that around on me? But it was an interesting discussion. So there may be something that comes out of that, but it made me question, I thought that was a ridiculous idea until he's like, oh, so you're okay with 1.5 billion people getting displaced in Bangladesh and low-lying countries who are often too poor to move? I'm like, it was a hell of a question. So anyhow.
It's hard to imagine that type of engineering ever getting enough public support. There's already conspiracy theories about geoengineering.
And how do we think about this? This guy now has a faculty of 12 people at the University of Chicago. It's a serious discussion I got into it with him, there's going to be massive unintended consequences, you're going to mess up the planet. And he's like, no, man, if you continue on the path that you're on, you're going to mess up the planet and there's going to be unintended consequences.
It does feel like a Band-Aid to me, though. I don't know.
It is.
It feels like a Band-Aid to me.
It's complicated, but having those conversations is important. So.
Outside of travel, is there any specific practices that climbers can adopt to minimize their environmental impact? As a climber that doesn't travel a lot myself.
Reduce animal product intake is a pretty big one. I think that a lot of climbers already start to do, seems like.
Don't have kids. This is part of the problem, is that, we're all for these solutions until we start thinking about them like, you know, I really like my kids. I like the kids a lot. Like,
I like your kids into the
okay, I like my
You
kids
already
a
had
lot.
kids, Will.
I know, so I can't take them back. You know, like they're out there. They've gone feral. One of them's off at school now.
Where are they?
Well, one's gone
Who
off to
knows?
school, which is another carbon problem, and I'm like, so they're, you know, but I think as climbers, the biggest thing we can do is advocate and try to change policy at a high level, and that's the biggest thing we can do. We're not, you know, we can use less chalk or something. I don't know. That's not going to really move the dial. It's like be an engaged citizen and join POW.
Talk to other climbers about climate change.
Yeah.
Just bring it up.
You got any ideas? I mean,
None that are better than that one.
okay, well, that's a pretty shitty one. But it is a discussion, and it's so thank you for that.
I can wrap it up here with my little mic to just say thank you to Will and Alannah for both being here and for being POW athletes, part of our ambassadors. Yeah, you got your there you go. Join POW if you haven't already joined POW as a member. It's very easy online. That's part of our power in numbers. We need all of our voices, and we'll be here all weekend at the Arc'teryx Climb Academy. So come visit, say hi, and thanks for being here. Thanks to you two.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Keep doing what you're doing.
thank you.
Cool. Let's go get a beer.
Yeah, cheers. Woo.